香港時間凌晨2點鐘啦，嚟到嘅呢個時候咧，我哋講下以色列點樣咧可以咧經過2000年之後咧成為一個國家。So the first part is just my Cantonese introduction, and the guest for today is Avigdor.
Right.
Avigdor Mevorach.
It's a complicated name. I'll say it in Hebrew. It's Avigdor Mevorach, or Avigdor Mevorach.
Yes. And he is in Israel, Yisiklit. He is in Israel right now. Yeah.
Correct.
And today's topic, it's what Hong Kongers can learn from Israel. The birth of the Israel state, it's a long history, more than 2,000 years of history, right?
Right.
The Bible to the Israelites lost the nation and then rebuilding, and then the war in the 1940s to where it is now. It's a long history. So I guess it's important to break our interview into two parts, and then Avigdor and I, in the next at least a year or so, we'll be talking about many different issues too, off record, comparing different ideologies. That's how we met, right?
Right.
Yeah,
that's correct.
Sure. And well, the first thing maybe, Avigdor, I want to ask you is every should I say every Jew or every Israelite person? I always mix up it. Jewish. It's the faith, right?
Judaism is more than a religion. It's a society. It's a culture. It's a history, and it's a people.
Yeah.
And we're all connected to one place, which is Zion, Israel.
Israel.
So so it's a lot of things when you say Jewish.
Right. And every Jewish person has to go for, I don't know, like is it like the military training for a few years?
Yeah.
Because we always watch on TV, there are young Jewish boys and girls in joining the military, at least for a few years, and then if something happens, they'll go and serve the country. How does it work for that part?
So it's not only Jewish; it's all Israeli citizens are required to serve or in the military or in national service. While there are some sectors, for various reasons, they get a leave from the army. Some for religious issues, some from ethnical issues. But it's true that the majority of the Jewish population serve in the military, and so did I.
Okay. So it's a compulsory service.
That's correct. That's correct.
It's started at what, 16 years of age or 18?
No, you get drafted when you're 18 until you're 21, and if some people stay on for longer, so it's a compulsory by law.
Okay, I see. So everyone, get to know how to use ammunition, I guess.
That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah, unlike Hong Kong people, they just know about the stock market, like how to buy calls or puts or how to invest in the market, right? Totally different thing. Yeah.
So we also have that, of course. The stock market is quite an important arena.
Yes.
So we can.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess first thing, want to give our audience a little bit of background. It's the current prime minister is Netanyahu.
That's correct.
He was back and forth, losing the seat, so to speak, and then now is still the prime minister.
Benjamin Netanyahu was re-elected in November. It took him a while to build up the coalition, and he succeeded to do so in the last 2 weeks. We'll see how it goes. It's quite a complex coalition he built, but his success is our success too.
Right. It is so difficult sometimes for people from the outside world understand another country's political system. I mean, most commonly understood political system will be, I guess, the U.S., because everyone follows back a few years ago the Trump and also Biden's election. It was very close, and then now President Biden is the president, right? And then and a lot of limelight has been given to Israel too, because where's the capital city of Israel right now?
It's the holy city of Jerusalem, the one and
It's already
only.
closed.
Jerusalem is always, for the last 3,000 years, is the capital of the Jewish people and of the Jewish country.
Okay. And the U.S. consulate, have they moved from
Yes,
Tel Aviv?
they're located since President Trump moved it, I think around 4 years ago, or
Right.
3 years ago. He moved it to Jerusalem, and hopefully many others will follow.
Because I went to Israel once. That was in 2010, so 12 years ago. But before that, I went to a pilgrimage of sorts. I went to Egypt and then went up to so-called, that's where Moses get the Ten Commandments. It's more like
Oh, I see. Mount Sinai in
Yeah.
the Sinai Peninsula. Okay.
But
Yeah,
whether
yeah.
it's true or not, nobody knows, right? Whether that's that's the mountain. Where
Well, it's tradition. Tradition is important for itself. There's a lot of power in tradition.
right. So I went there, Israel first for the pilgrim. Egypt for the Mount Sinai pilgrimage, and then to Israel for more on. I follow a lot of Bible scholars going
Mhm.
through the time when Jesus was still doing the preaching. But back to the history. I guess, as I said, we'll break it into two, maybe even three parts. The evolution of the Zionist movement from
Yeah.
Theodor Herzl to Ben Gurion and beyond. Now, for Hong Kong audience, they might not know these names, but they know Rothschild because of the money financial part, right? Rothschild is a big family. So
The Rothschild, yeah.
maybe Theodor Herzl, maybe we start with there.
Okay, all right. So Theodor Herzl, basically, we could say he's the envisionary of in the late 19th century. He had a vision of a Jewish independent state. Now, the Zionist movement, Zion means Israel, means the land of Israel, and the Zionist movement, which was formed by Herzl, aimed to, to return the Jewish diaspora to the land of Zion, but in a very, very important way, through legitimate and democratic means. The Zionist movement also sits on the shoulders of 2,000 years of tradition, history, culture, language, literature, and most important, the striving to the return to Zion. It's mentioned in every prayer. Whoever prays 3 times a day, it's mentioned in the prayer 3 times a day. I have to say, we're talking about also religion over here. We have to be truthful to the facts. The Zionist movement was very critical in the beginning towards the religious leadership because they were quite reluctant at first and even against the idea of an independent Jewish state. And here is where the brilliance of David Ben Gurion, the first prime minister of Israel, he was able to mitigate between the factions and eventually bring them all on board. Okay. And it's very important to stress that the Zionist movement, from its initiation, always worked in the realm of the international arena. It's in the international community, the international institutions, in order to achieve legitimacy. And this is done since the late 19th century and throughout the whole 20th century. The audience might not be aware of these names I'm going to throw out now, but if you go up and Google the Balfour Declaration, the San Remo Committee, 1920s, the mandate given by the League of Nations after 1945, after the World War One, to the British to rule Israel in order to evolve it into a Jewish state. And at the end, in 1947, when the UN basically decided to split the land of Israel into two, into a Jewish state and an Arab state. And the history goes on. And we'll talk about, maybe if we have time, about the unfortunate conflict that evolved because of the decisions of some parties who didn't accept the decision of the UN. And this importance of the arena of the international committee is important to this very day. Israel always looks at what happens in the international committee, and it plays by the rules of the international committee. So if we go back from the 19th century to this day today, we see a combination of tradition, we see a combination of democracy, we see a combination of getting all the people of Israel together as a unification of the many, many factions of the Jewish people, and under the international committee and international ruling and international institutions. So I hope I gave a very short answer to a very long question.
Sure. Now, I want to go back in time, because people know of history. I mean, at least people from my circle of friends, which is more from a religious perspective, they go for religious pilgrimage. And then people more from the layman perspective, they know about the Jews suffering during the Second World War, during Hitler, the gas chamber and all that. I just want to ask you more from a general sense, before the rebirth of Israel in 1948. What's the population of the Jews? Jews, I mean, to me, it's not really. Now, there's African Jews. I think there's Chinese Jews too, because maybe they got converted, right? So, but during the time of the Bible, even like Jesus doesn't look like too Caucasian, right? Nobody knows. But can you explain this to me? You know, like what is a Jew? And then we will go into the Second World War, because
Okay.
it is a lot of talking points today. I
Yeah,
think we definitely need to
Okay.
go into 3 parts. So what is
All right. So Judaism, if I'll use one of the Jewish thinkers from the 20th century, Mordechai Kaplan. He's a Jewish thinker from the United States. He called it Judaism as a civilization. It's not an ethnicity, but it's a civilization based on the rule of God in order to fix this world into a better place through law, and through critical thinking. And of course, there's language, there's tradition, there's liturgy. All this together gathers up the people together as a people, as a civilization. And of course, we cannot forget that a major factor of Judaism is the Jewish law. It doesn't matter if you're secular or not, but the Jewish law basically is basically the DNA for all Jews around the world. So a Jew who grew up in Iraq and will walk into a synagogue in London, in Great Britain, he will know exactly what is going on. They will even be able to talk to each other because they both pray in Hebrew, and Hebrew is the common language of the Jewish people. The prayers themselves, they might have some dialects, but they will say the same prayers. They will know exactly what is going to be read on the Sabbath and the sacred books. So That's what in a nutshell is the beauty of Judaism. It's going to any place in the world and you feel at home. But Jews feel at home in one place, and that's Israel.
Yeah. So there could be an Ethiopian Jew. There could be a
Sure.
Chinese Jew, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Okay. What about the population of the um, Jewish people back during the Second World War, and then how many uh, Jews got persecuted? I mean, I know the history of Tibet quite well, but not really exactly know the number, because the number inside the gas chamber and all that, it varies. So I want to ask you, for someone who studies and who know, the history a
Yeah.
thousand times better than me. So you are the authority today.
So we have to remember that what happened in the atrocity of the Holocaust
Yeah.
is one of the most awful atrocities humankind were able to inflict on the other person. And Jews were persecuted and exterminated. The numbers talk about 6 million Jews, and or a third of the Jewish people basically evaporated. Jewish congregations around Europe and North Africa ceased to exist. It's something which it's impossible to think about, and that's how awful it was. But
So one third of the race, one third
yeah.
from 80 million, they eliminate 6 million people.
Yeah. And now, anti-Semitism is a very sad and horrifying phenomena that exists since the Jewish nation was born. Yes, what happened 80 years ago was one of the worst, if not the worst, incidents of anti-Semitism. But it changes its face from generation to generation to generation, the Jewish persecution. But I have to say, and listen carefully, is I follow the footsteps of my grandfather. He was a Holocaust survivor. He was in Auschwitz in the death camps. He had a number on his hand that the Nazis embedded on his hand. And you would think that this person will be full of anger and wrath, but the opposite. He preached always to look forward. And he used to say that looking back is looking at the wrong way. And he used to say, learn from the past in order to strive and be successful tomorrow. Study, work hard, build a sustainable society, and most important, take responsibility. And I grew up on this since I was born. And if you take my grandfather's story, and I think you could replicate it to the story of Israel, we went through horrible incidents over the history. And we always could start blaming and looking for the reasons why these things are happening. But I think the beauty of our nation is to get up in the morning, learn from the mistakes, take responsibility, and go forward. So that's what I have to say on this very, very, very difficult topic.
To forgive and forget, I put it in more biblical terms.
My grandfather was asked if he could forgive.
Yeah.
No, you cannot forgive, but you have to live. You have to live, and you have to grasp life in two hands and put in it the optimism of the current and the present in order to have a better tomorrow. And that's what I get from my grandfather. Some things you cannot forget and you cannot forgive. But it doesn't mean you cannot progress and work together even. I mean, I have many German friends, and I worked closely with Germans, and we talked a lot about what happened. And I'm sure that their great-grandfathers, some of them did whatever they did, but it doesn't mean I cannot have a logical and adult understanding that something happened, and now we have to deal with it. And,
Okay. Now, I'm not following all your notes for this 30-minute talk, and then probably we have to break it into 2 or 3. Now, regarding Israel and also the Palestinian conflict, because I visited the West Bank, and then I tried to go to that part. I can't remember, like inside Israel, the southwestern tip. That's where a lot of
the Gaza Strip.
Gaza Strip, yes,
Yeah.
and then there were a lot of theories about there's a lot of tunnels that lead to Egypt, where they get food supply, military supply, and all that, right? Like Palestinian situation, and they live inside Israel, and then I'm talking about the modern day right now. This conflict, because we also see that the land of the Palestinian inside Israel is less and less, maybe 3 or 4%. From the 1940s was like 53 to like 47. The Jews claim back 53%, and then it becomes more and more, right? What do you think of the situation? Because we can only understand the conflict from CNN and BBC, right? And a little bit of Al Jazeera from Qatar, right? So if are they under suppression too? I mean, the Palestinian people, can the Palestinians and Jewish people live in peace? Like Israel is only so big, right? It's not that big in a sense. I could go from north to south, and then I think I went to most of the places within 1 week. Yeah, the historical biblical sites, but how to resolve this issue? I mean, all the high walls, and then the Palestinians have to go through the security checks to get a better job inside the Israel part of things, right?
Okay.
Solve that.
So, all right. So before getting into the Israeli-Palestinian conflict,
Yeah.
it is very important to stress that the Israeli society consists of 80% Jews and 20% Palestinian Israeli Arabs, which have full citizen rights and are represented accordingly in the parliament. Okay? There are Palestinian Israeli Arabs in all realms of the economy. There are in the parliament, as I said. There are judges, doctors, nurses, businessmen, researchers in university, in high tech. Yes, there are issues that need to be solved, and I hope that the new government will deal with these hardships which the Palestinian Israeli Arabs have. But again, they're full citizens. My vote is equal to their vote. Okay, and last November, when I went to the ballot, so did Mr. Arab Israeli Palestinian go, and he had the same right as I did. Okay, and the fact is that 20% of the Israeli parliament is Arab. Okay, people don't understand that, but I think Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East where both Jews, Christians, Muslims have full rights and they could do whatever they want. Okay. The issue is, in what you mentioned, is in the territories or the West Bank.
Yeah. And Gaza Strip.
Yeah. I'll put Gaza Strip aside because Israel is not there anymore. Israel disengage from Gaza. And when we talked about responsibility,
Mm,
someone over here needs to take responsibility on their lives, and it's not
mm,
the Israelis. The Israelis are not in that game anymore. But the issue is in the territories or the West Bank, where there's a legal dispute regarding the legitimacy of the Israeli presence over there. Okay,
mm,
we could go back in history. What was the West Bank before 1967, before 1948, and before 1947, and
yeah,
before the Phil Accords in 1937, and go on and go on. But it's useless. It doesn't lead us to anywhere.
yeah. Cannot conclude. But
Yeah,
there is no conclusion.
yeah.
Yeah,
The
cannot be
issue
solved.
is
Yeah.
that the conflict with the Palestinians is a very tragic story. And as I said, there's for sure unjust and wrongdoing on both sides. And it's to start doing the blame game. Who started? Who did it? Who
Mm,
did first? It won't lead us anywhere. The conflict is
yeah,
horrible.
mm,
Okay, there's no doubt about it.
right.
Nevertheless, and unfortunately, and I say this real sadly, in
Mm,
this neighborhood of the Middle East, if you're not deterrent and strong, and the most important, unified, you'll perish. And it's harsh words which you're just saying now, but
mm,
if Israel will lay down its arms, there will be no Israel. And that means that the persistent uh, activities of Israel in the disputed areas of the
mm,
West Bank is something which you just can't stop it in one day and think that it'll all be good.
mm,
Now, as that, again, it's my personal point of view, but I think that there's no foreseen solution to this conflict, but it requires very wise management and walking between the drops. Sometimes you have to give in more, sometimes you have to give in less, sometimes you have to provide as much as possible
mm,
uh, amenities and help out. And there are a lot, by the way, there's a lot of cooperation between the Jewish settlers and Arab Palestinians. There's a lot of economical and joint activities undercurrent. No one talks about it out loud. And of course, in a perfect world, I think the Palestinians should have some kind of self government for their internal affairs,
mm.
but it should not hinder the Israeli security. And unfortunately, and I really say this, it's unfortunately, today it seems like an oxymoron.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, it's
I don't think we have the time to go into the Gaza Strip because, it's a big topic talking about Israel, and I was just trying to throw how come Steven Spielberg become so successful, or George Soros from the hedge fund world, you know. So there are a lot of people who are highly successful in America who are Jewish, and then I guess we need another time to do that. Um, but to conclude in this part one, just want to ask, what's the population now of Israel, and is it Israel they can have dual citizenship,
yes, yes,
U.S. and Israel? How about
yes.
Canada and Israel, or
You
is
could
it
have
just
whatever,
US?
you could have dual citizenship with wherever you want. There's no problem. There is a problem that some countries threw out the Jews in 1948, and those Jews don't have dual citizenship. They left their uh, property and land and houses in those states, in Syria, in Egypt, in Iraq, in Lebanon, and they in Yemen, and they
Mm,
fled from those countries to Israel, and they don't have dual citizenship. But Jews who came from the Western world and want to have dual citizenship, they can have. Now, Israel, if I'm not mistaken, has 8 million people.
8 million right now. Okay.
Yeah. and not including the territories in the Gaza Strip. That's a different subject, and there's a lot of scholars who argue how to count the numbers.
Yeah.
But Israel is around 8 million people.
How about globally, Jewish people?
Well, it's hard for me to give a number, but there's around 7 million or 6.5 million Jews in Israel, the same amount in the United States, and then around another million around the world.
At least 20 million.
It's very hard to count what it's. We didn't discuss about it, but arguments is one of the main factors of the Jewish identity. Okay, so any subject you'll raise is an argument, a discussion which needs to be analyzed till the last little bit.
Right.
So a question of what is a Jew, we'll talk more than 2 hours, or we'll talk 2 years about it, and it's a question which cannot be solved in this short discussion.
Yes.
But there's around 15 million Jews around the world, and
50.
Well, 15.
15.
Yeah.
15. Yeah.
Give or take. Yeah.
Okay. So the next time when we discuss, I want to ask you, Israel, a nation built on peace, realism, and self-defense, and even some lighter topics like Krav Maga. I think that's a self-defense.
Krav Maga.
I want to ask you something like that. How is it different from Wing Chun and some other Kung Fu styles? Because it seems like everyone kind of know self-defense. Right, if they go to the military.
So just before we summarize today's discussion, we will touch about it next time. But the Jewish prayer 3 times a day mentions the requests or prayer to God to put peace in this world, shalom. And I think that's so powerful. The word shalom means also hello and goodbye, but the shalom as peace mentioned 3 times a day, it means a lot. It means a lot. It means a lot about this religion. It means a lot about this society, as we started out. Exactly, shalom, and we should have more of shalom around this world, and to really think how to make this world a better world, and I'll say it in Hebrew, letaken olam b'malchut Shaddai, to fix this world under the realm of His Almighty.
Right. 2023 is not easy. I think it's going to be very challenging with everything that's going on, rising interest rate from the finance perspective, the Ukraine war, and then this COVID Delta variant, XBB.1.5. It's challenging.
Well, life is challenges, and as we mentioned, we have to learn from the past in order to look at the future and to build a better society.
Yes, and we look forward to talk more about Israel, its people,
Definitely.
and everything around Israel. And thank you so much, Avidor. I will stop the live broadcast now.
Okay, it's a pleasure. Take care.